My name is Officer Peter Reynolds. Today is March 17th, 2014. I am here with please state your full name and your birth date. Sarah Marshall, September 27th, 1992. After reading my Miranda rights to me again and making me sign a silly paper, they finally wanted to know what happened last night. What would you like to tell me? Officer Reynolds, an old cop who looks like retirement is next week. I don't know where to start. Officer Reynolds crossed his arms over his chest. Start from the beginning. I took a deep breath. Once I started, I knew it was going to be a while before I stopped. It was like any other day. I woke up with the baby and brought her out to the living room. Finding my husband passed out, hung over from last night. After getting the baby and I ready for the day, I took her to the park for some fun. While swinging on the swing set, one of my friends from high school ran into me. Apparently, she just got back into town for a fresh start with her Dalmatian, having a little chat to catch up and agreeing to get coffee later. Saying our goodbyes and see you later, she continued on her run, looking back at my daughter, wondering if this was the life I truly wanted for her. After an hour or two at the park, we went to the grocery store to get more diapers and milk, looking at the time, seeing as it was time for lunch. On our way home, and mustering up the courage to walk in the door, worrying if my husband was already drunk again or if he was going to start another fight. Taking a deep breath before I even unlocked the door, I announced that we were home, looking to see if he was still passed out on the couch. To my surprise, the couch was empty. Closing the door and locking it, I set our daughter down so she could go play with her toys while I put the groceries away. After searching the house, I couldn't find him. His car was still in the driveway, and his phone was still lying on the coffee table. I looked in the backyard thinking he was out there. He wasn't. Convinced he walked to the liquor store to buy more beers, I went to start making lunch. We had a sandwich and some chips, while we giggled about silly words. An hour later, and my husband still hasn't shown himself or called, I grab his phone to see if it would tell me where he could have gone or where he might have been last night. After unlocking the phone, the sound of keys entered the locking mechanism of the front door. Getting scared, I put it right back where it was. Moments later, my husband walked through the door. Ignoring me and going straight for our daughter, picking her up and giving her kisses and saying hello to her. Putting her down, then asking me what's for lunch, I explained to him how we already ate a sandwich an hour ago. He looked at the clock and got upset. You had lunch and didn't save or make anything for me. I told him how he wasn't home, and how could I save him some if we couldn't reach each other to see if he wanted something, because he left his phone and disappeared, which only made him angrier. That's not the point. God, you're selfish. Why don't you think about someone else and that goddamn baby all the time? Cutting in my story. Officer Reynolds asks, was your husband the baby's biological father? Yes, I replied. After that comment, I could already tell he had been drinking, and now I'm going to be late for work because I still have to shower and now I have to pick up food on my way to work. Thanks a lot. Storming to the bathroom, I sit there on the floor of our living room while our daughter continues playing with her toys. We had food in the fridge for him or I to make. I yelled down to the bathroom if he would like me to make him something. It's too late. I don't want to eat anything you're going to make. He preferred fast food or takeout over my home-cooked meals. On nights he would come home late, I would have a plate of food made for him, and he would tell me he already ate. On the nights I wasn't feeling well enough to cook, he would yell at me for wasting his money, and on the nights I couldn't cook at all because there was no food in the house or I was sick, he'd come home yelling about how he hadn't eaten all day, asking me what I had done all day. Like taking care of our daughter and keeping the house clean wasn't enough for him. He would yell at me how I'm wasting his money just by having a car, reminding him he's the one that told me to quit my job as senior manager to become a stay-at-home mom, declaring, "No one knows what's best for our daughter but you." At the time, it sounded like a compliment, like I had been doing such a great job as a mother. But the more he said it, the more it sounded like a prison sentence. After a half hour, my husband came out of the bathroom, dressed in his uniform, about to leave for work. Kissing our daughter and saying goodbye, he heads for the door without even saying anything to me. "Brad," I called for him. "What? I'm gonna be late for work." I finally made up my mind. I wasn't going to live like this. I couldn't raise my daughter to one day believe that this was love. I want a divorce. We were silent for a few seconds, but the panic set in immediately. "What did you just say?" he asked angrily. "I want a divorce." His eyes widening, his fist tightening. "You think you can live without me? You think you can survive without me?" Quickly approaching me, putting his hands around my throat. I tried to pull them off, but they wouldn't move. They just kept getting tighter. "No one leaves me. No one." Everything started to go out. I flung my hands around to find something to help. I got my hands on my grandmother's vase and smashed it on his head, breaking and knocking him to the ground. When I could finally see again, I saw my daughter in the hallway staring at us, tears streaming down her face. Terrified of what was going on, I ran to her and grabbed her and ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to get Beth out of there. I ran for 2 miles before I realized I was headed towards the city. Remembering we had planned to meet up with Nina for coffee, I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't have my wallet or keys or even my phone. All I had grabbed was Beth. Walking into the cafe, I noticed Nina immediately. I walked over and said hi. It didn't take long for Nina to ask about what was going on and what happened to my neck. I hadn't even looked to see if my neck was bruised. My eyes began to fill with tears. I couldn't see anything past my tears. Beth began to get fussy, so Nina suggested we go to a park instead. So we went to her car. She drove a little red Honda. It already had a kid's car seat in the back for Beth. "You have kids?" I asked her. "I have 3. My oldest is 18, looking at colleges. My youngest is 2 years old." We started talking about her kids and about Beth, how amazing they were. When we got to the park, Beth wanted to swing first. Nina helped put Beth in the swing while I went to push her. "So," Nina asked, "you want to talk about it?" as she gestured to her neck. So I told her what happened. "That's awful. In front of the baby?" Nina replied after I was done. "What are you gonna do?" she asked. "I'm still processing it all. I don't know what I should do." A moment of silence. "Has this happened before?" Nina asked. Staring at the ground like the answers will suddenly appear on the mulch, I replied, "He's raised his voice and broken things, but he's never..." Nina goes to hold my hand, and I look her in the eyes. "Sweetie, I know you're thinking about you and him right now, but do me a favor. Stop thinking about that. Think about Beth. Think about what you would tell her if she was in this situation, what you would want for her to do. If Beth was being abused, What would say to her? I went back to staring at the ground. I'd beg her to leave. Nina smiles. Then what are you waiting for? She was right. It was time I left my husband and found a better life for Beth and I. But what am I going to do? I haven't worked in years, and Brad had all the money for bills, so I have no money for anything. The fear creeping back in again. You and Beth can come stay with me for a bit until you get back on your feet. Or you can get help at a shelter who helps families of domestic violence. You have options, but do what is best for Beth. Nina is right. Beth is what is important. Nina, can you watch Beth for a few hours? I'm gonna go back over there and get what I can, I asked, Nina already shaking her head. Of course, would you like a ride back to your place? She asked. No, it's better if I find my way back. It gives me enough time to think of what I'm gonna grab. Officer Reynolds steps out of the interrogation room to refill his cup of coffee, stepping back inside with questions. So you left Beth, your daughter, with Nina? He asks. Correct, I reply. Why did you run with Beth? Brad was only hurting you. Has he ever hurt Beth before? Sounding skeptical of my decisions. When Brad gets mad like that, he doesn't see or think clearly anymore. It's like he becomes a different person. Like he has no recollection of his loved ones, and we are just pawns in his house that he is able to move at his will. I wanted to protect Beth, even if it meant I got hurt. Reynolds nodding his head as he scribbles down on his notepad while sipping his fresh cup of coffee. All right. Continue with what happened once you got back to the house. When I got back, the front door was unlocked. The air in the room felt dense, walking in, shutting the door behind me. Hello? I call out, expecting my husband to still be in his fit of rage. No response. I started to grab everything on the list I made up on my way back and threw them next to the front door. Diaper bag, phone charger, overnight bag for the both of us. I ran to the safe that we kept in our room for our identification papers, birth certificates, social security cards. When I opened the safe, I immediately noticed his gun was missing. Insert gun cocking. What do you think you are doing? Brad hissed. I turned around to see his gun pointed at my head, tears flooding my eyes. Sweetie, there you are. My voice trembling. Where is our daughter? He hissed again. I left her with a friend. I don't want to see us upset and fighting, so I asked one of my friends to take her for a bit for a play date. I tell him, as he presses the gun closer to my head, holding my face with his other hand, honey, let's talk about this. We don't need to act like this. Fear pumping through my veins. Let's sit down and have some tea while we talk, bringing his face closer to mine, looking for lies or tricks. Fine, but no funny business. Removing his hand and gun, he gestures to me to the kitchen, watching me fill the tea kettle with water and placing it on the stove. What do you want to talk about? The divorce? Brad asked, my heart pounding. I think we should see someone, like a couples therapist. I have to lie or else I won't make it out of here alive. Yeah, we've said this before and nothing ever came from the conversations. He hissed. Not mentioning because he doesn't believe in paying for a stranger to listen to our problems for an hour and paying an arm and a leg for nothing to get resolved. I think I need to see someone. I'm seeing things and forgetting things again. Brad chuckled. Yeah, no. See, that isn't gonna work either. Neither of us need to see anyone. The only people you should be seeing is me and Beth, and the only people I need to see is you, fortunately, and the people I work with, because someone needs to pay the bills. and it doesn't seem like you're gonna do anything. Brad getting up, leaving the gun on the table, walking over to me, wrapping his arms around me, hugging me from behind. We are happy, just the way we are. There is nothing wrong with how we are. Kettle starts whistling. My heart is pounding again. I have to get out. His arms start to release me from his death grip of a hug. Quickly, I grab the hot kettle and hit him in the head with it. Knocking him to the ground, I run for the gun this time. Aiming it right at his head, he starts laughing. "Put that down. You don't even know how to use it," he says as he gets up. Taking the safety off, I said to him, "My daddy taught me how to shoot a gun at the age of 6. If only you ever asked." He lunged at me and I pulled the trigger, the bullet landing in the middle of his head, his body falling to the floor. One last time. I took one last breath of fear and finally breathed in peace. A world where he no longer existed. She didn't deserve this, any of this. She deserved a happy home, with parents who loved one another. I just wish I had known then what I know now, I finished telling the officer. "And why do you say that, Mrs. Marshall?" Officer Reynolds asks me. "Because I would have walked right past him the first day we met. I would have never married him. And Beth would have never existed," the officer states. I look at him in his eyes, oak brown eyes. You know that saying, better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all? That wasn't love, and my daughter didn't deserve that pain. I ended up being sentenced to 25 years in prison. After finding out that both of my parents died in a car accident, I asked Nina to foster Beth while I served out my sentence. Watching Beth grow up behind a bulletproof glass was hard, but I know that it was easier than watching her from a grave that he put her in.